2, 1. Hello.
We're back.
Ladies and gentlemen, boosters and hens, and everything else in between. Cock Talk is back. No guest this week, so we're late and informal.
Yeah.
Feels good. Don't be professional tonight.
So
Let's screw around.
No rush.
Josh is in no rush.
No rush.
Josh doesn't have a bedtime.
Josh doesn't have a bedtime.
Oh, I do.
Oh, and as always, the full crew is here. I am Tyler at MBF Express. We have our always late, but always getting us on air eventually, but producer at Grateful Coops, Josh, the man with the theories at Waddle Waddle Racing, Blake, and Dad trying to rush us along, and he should be. Pecking Order Racing, Dave. Gentlemen, how we doing tonight?
Fantastic. Doing all right.
Great.
We're late, but we're here.
What about you,
Yeah.
Tyler? You good?
I'm going to be all over the mute button tonight.
Okay.
You're trying to get me caught. I can see you. Something is getting me tonight. It's not COVID. I'm okay this time. But anyway, gentlemen, we've had a fun week. We've had a lot of racing once again. We've had a productive looking dev blog, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my chickens, but I've raced them a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Almost 300 times.
Almost 300 times. Yes.
You and Josh combined.
269. Nice.
There you go. But there's still a couple zeros on that negative ETH before you get there, 0.001. So I'm doing okay. I haven't tanked too bad yet.
Just say the number. Don't make people do any math.
0.001 or something like that. It's not good. 0.0012. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm like $30 down or something. I don't know. I'm in the black, so I've also raced the least.
Yeah, with your 4 races.
48 races, but I'm in the black.
4 to 8 races. That's fine.
Nice.
And we're going to get into a little bit of that more because kind of the strategies that we've already taken right out of the gate are a little bit different between some of us. So we get to discuss that here in a bit.
Yeah, we don't have a guest this week, so we actually get to bust out that tinfoil. Hope you brought it. We're going to be talking about races this last week. Just some data that we've all kind of pulled. All my birds are broken. It should be a country song.
Especially your expensive birds.
All my birds. No, but yeah, we're going to be getting into some of the juice of last week's races, kind of what we got from what we've raced with our birds. Few races, many races, we've had quite a few. Just gonna be testing some theories, and some have some conclusions already, I think. But
I concluded that I know how to lose 20 straight races.
Wow.
And I did.
Those are rookie numbers. I gotta get those up.
It was in the chat like the day before, and I think I was talking with Little Bala about just like I was going to actually try a few things based on the times, and thinking I was like, I just want to be able to write this off, whether or not this is something that could be real or not, and it could get expensive, even though I'm sticking with the $2 and $4 races. But yeah, I think that I can say times don't mean a thing. That's my suggestion at this point. We'll see what times, and we'll get into all that too, but 20 straight races in a row, not even getting a third place, I'd say maybe times don't matter.
Did you get any 10 through 12s though in that 20?
It was a lot of junk. It was all mixed. It was all mixed. Yeah, that's the problem.
Useless data.
It was all mixed, and some of them, like I got a faster time and lost, and a slower time on ones before and won. So it just it started to get really, really choppy at one point, and I just started thinking to myself, all right, I was like 10 in, and I'm like, I'm going to see this through anyway and see what happens, and I went through the pain.
At what point in the race are you rooting for, well, I'm probably not going to win this race. All right, get last. Oh, come on.
As long as I'm on the screen, I'm holding out hope for the podium. I might say, though, it may not be wrong in the sense of, because were you looking at it all from the same track? Your times?
Different birds, different tracks, and I was trying to keep
So,
the same ones and try to test that part out. Yeah.
It's going to be hard, but I think if you look at it, because I think certain birds run at different pace on different terrains. So from, let's say on snow at 100 meters, they're going to have a different time than on track at 100 meters.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I did notice that too. Yeah.
And actually, even breaking down races that I've ran that were the same terrain, same distance, you see very various times. It's there, but the ones that I noticed that I've lost that were bad were all about the same really poor time. And then there was one that I won, and it was like 3 or 4 seconds faster than my poor finishes.
I haven't focused on time on any of my spreadsheets.
No, the one track I've dove the deepest into has over a 10-second kind of range in the winning time at, like, in the races I've looked at. And like, it's just.
So while we're on this point, you mentioned Little Ball earlier, because she posted some interesting, or he or she, I guess she posted some interesting things about some of the data on the back end, which showed these segments of when they go. So if those are randomized sort of in a sense, then I guess that would explain some of the variance in times, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. So if you're kind of falling on team times don't matter, I think you look at time as similar to the video. It's just an expression of the determined outcome from the algorithm. I know that chicken 1 needs to win this race. It doesn't really matter what amount of time it takes him to do so. There's probably a range set in the algorithm in terms of how much time they need that race to last for all of the events they've talked about and everything else. So he can only run so fast. He can't go faster than what they need the race to be. But just like I believe that when they look tired or when they sprint, it's just fun stuff put in there for us to enjoy while watching. I think times mean just as much.
Well, that's the thing. And Fledge says here, you also got to consider the competition. You could be up against easier birds in certain races and whatnot. And that's certainly something I'll be talking about and getting into as well, because we'll talk a little bit about that. I know I was in the Beta Race channel for a while, talking with some people just about exactly if it was, and JSD summed it up much more succinct than me. I'll remember it.
Just DAC full.
It was I was not efficient, and he was like, essentially is it chicken versus chicken or chicken versus terrain?
Yeah.
And that's it. And in the end, we kind of came up with this thought that it's a little bit of both. Is that it is chicken versus chicken, but you're determining that based on how the terrain affects their racing capabilities, and then what's spit out to you
it's
is
definitely
their numbers.
It's definitely chicken versus chicken, because that's what gives you your race, right?
Well, yeah, but it was just the concept of like, is it just like, how does this chicken do on this race, and that's their number, and everyone goes like that? Or is it a breakdown of every chicken, how they are stacked up against each other, and then based on how the numbers equate, you have the differentiation in time?
I think
the
number one over a long-term period is going to give you what you're looking for, though, right? The first scenario that you just broke down there, but spread out over a long-term period, is going to give you that data. The second one is looking more at an individual race, like saying out of 10 races, I think is more likely scenario 2 that you're looking at. Do you follow me?
But I guess that's the thing. Like, if it's just chicken versus terrain in that regard, if just that first one, then the times should line up more often. Like, you should run, and then the consistency factors in there too, and that's a big one we don't know about.
That's the word I was just going to say. Of one word that breaks all of that is the consistency, and that is the unknown number that we don't know.
Yeah, this is why I haven't been looking at times, though, also, because I think if you can find the terrain, it doesn't matter what time your bird runs, right? If that's the preferred terrain, I don't care if he's won in a minute or 10 minutes.
Well, see, that's what caught me a little bit, is I was seeing a little bit of a trend of what my birds were winning at a time. And I was like, all right, I'll run with this and see if I can just squash it. And I did. And I squashed myself pretty hard, pretty quickly, realizing that there was almost no correlation there. So
if those birds are running the same over 5-10 races in a row, the exact same birds, then time might be a variable there. But because you're running against different birds every time, I think it's best that, and that's kind of what I've done, is just focus on like try to find out their best track and train, distance and train.
Yeah. And those are going to be some fun things that we will hopefully
So
get
do we
into
want
a
to
little later.
do we want to touch on the dev blog first and then get full into this, or?
Yeah.
Foil.
Well, actually,
Okay.
I was going to bring up a pretty handy site that we have not mentioned yet, and that is
Oh, sure, yeah.
the folks over at Know Your Horses, or that put
Now
that together.
know your wallet.
Yeah, I put together Know Your Wallet. You can just go there and connect. It's totally fine.
knowyourwallet.io, and they have a couple different projects there, but they have a tab specifically for chickens, and it's been quite excellent so far.
Yeah, I was going to say all that. But thanks.
you didn't say .io.
I
I had to give.
Well,
it
I
to
wasn't.
I'm the bulldozer. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, these guys have been awesome. We've been talking to them a little bit about possibly coming on the show, so we'll be letting you guys know about that. And knowyourwallet.io, and yeah, you can connect right there, and it pops up real smooth. It's actually a real slick website. I really enjoy.
But this is
I
the
don't.
best part. Well,
Go ahead.
Other than me having this bird be negative ROI, but
Wrong choice of
you-
birds. Don't you have a winner to show off?
No.
That's
Yeah,
that is his winner.
That is
Actually,
Where's that
this one
Black
isn't-
Sarama?
This one, the Black Sarama
Yeah.
hasn't been bad.
They were on the podium at
Yeah, he's
This
beat
week?
me a few times.
It's still negative, but yeah, it's
Looks like a mountain range.
yeah.
it is not U-shaped.
It is a mountain range. It's
Well,
a couple-
I'm kind
the
of
Appalachians.
I was scattershotting it over until I kind of found where it was pretty decent at, and it's pretty decent on track and road but yeah, these guys put this together, and you just connect your wallet, and it pulls all your chicken data, pulls all your chicken races, puts it all together, and you can click right on your chicken and breaks everything down for you. Gives you links to your wallet and OpenSea. Gives you the ROI, profit, net profit, winnings, entry fees, percentages.
Just saying, exhausted eye, negative ROI. Just saying.
I mean,
FUD.
that's just
No,
like
no
We'll
FUD.
FUD the exhausted
Yeah.
eye forever.
You're
Anyway.
just jealous.
But yeah, we'll be going into that a little more in detail in in another episode coming up. But yeah, let's jump, I guess, right into the dev blog and go over that.
Yeah, let's get that boring stuff out of the way.
I wish I had the song queued up.
Tyler, cue it up.
Bird's the word. That's a bird. So you about the entire time while you're doing this?
No, this is not an episode of Family Guy.
Okay.
Bird is a word, and here are 500 other words that make up our weekly dev blog. The previous week was great with our first tests of automatic race generation. Early in the week, we discovered a problem with our previous contracts for payouts, pay-ins, which left unchecked would have caused problems down the road. They've since implemented new contracts and have been testing them with races since Wednesday. However, since then, another issue came up in regards to users entering races. When entering a paid race, the entry will sometimes be read as a success, but then return a failure minutes later, making the race link think that it was full when it wasn't. And that was the issue with the races hanging up with 11 of 12 all day on Friday, which was that was kind of frustrating, but it is beta, so we roll on. Fortunately, though, these issues are the minority of cases. Most transactions are going through without a problem, so much that they have managed to break the $120,000 given away as prize money in races. Congrats.
No small number.
Nope,
No.
that is awesome. And that's only 2,000 plus races, right? Since they've been tracking since the beginning. That number has been going since the first race happened, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's just over 2,000 races. That's a lot of dough. In addition to the smart contract update, here are a few other things that the devs got implemented this week. Changes to the race scheduling so that the delay between the race being full and running isn't as long. Yeah? You guys notice that?
Yeah,
They're talking about the countdown timer in scheduled races, correct?
Yeah, I was jumping in some on Friday and getting them run kind of within 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was
Which-
quicker Friday.
Which fixes one problem and kind of opens the door on another one of people being able to run their best birds kind of
100 times
indefinitely. You could, yeah, with the 2-hour wait, and you know, you can only run 4 or 5 times in a session. Now it's like, oh, I can just keep reloading the same bird over and over and over again. So that might be something they have to look at, finding another way to combat. But I think for the overall experience, it's better to have the shorter waits.
Yeah, because there was a couple that weren't. There was a couple races that didn't fill throughout the night, and then I think it was a slightly higher paid race, and I entered it late at night one time, and I was like, oh, I gotta wait an hour before I can watch this, and I think it was already like 10 or 10:30 at night, and it was no problem. I'm up till midnight anyway, but yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. You know, when you're jumping in, especially if you just want to grab one before you go, and you have to wait an hour plus. So, you know, yeah, we're a little spoiled from Zed as long as they had to wait. But in the end, I do think cutting it down to 20 is just a more satisfying experience for everyone.
Yeah, or at least like 30 minutes if you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's doable. Yeah, they also updated the race pool. There are now 133 different possible races compared to the previous 87. They added the version number to the race viewer, fixed JavaScript rounding issue, so no more 0.01999999 WETH payments. Yeah, gotta love that. For all you Polyscan hawks out there. That bothers you. Fixed the My Chickens Only filter on to the results page. That's clutch. Thank you for that, bringing that back. That was very much needed.
Yeah, between that and chicken.tools, I was really able to just kind of like pour through everything.
The next thing that if what would be nice is if you click the My Chickens tab and it calculated your winnings instead of all the winnings, so it doesn't look like you won $120,000.
Yeah, I mean that's a bit of a confusing interface on the website right now that I hope gets addressed.
Quick question before we move any further. Those 133 different possible races, are those all the possibilities between A, B, and C, or is that 133 between A, B, and C?
Those are just the locations. I
believe. That's just tracks. So that's
so there's 133 different possible locations, basically.
Yeah. So some of them repeat the same distance and terrain combo that are elsewhere, but it means, you know, you don't have, if you're looking for a 160-meter track, you don't have to wait for Oslo to come back around. There might be a second option now.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
It's a lot.
I'm probably going to add more of those down the road too, I'd imagine, as time goes.
Well, hopefully some owned ones.
Yeah, that's what we were speculating before. Yeah.
Looks like they added a comma to the prize pool number, and WETH immediately balance updates after entering a paid race. That saves you from having to hit the refresh button, or if you think you still got $300 on there, and then you go back, you finally refresh, and you only got about 100 left.
Yep. Yeah, it's pain when you run out of money. And
well, I will say it is. I do go in and refresh often, right? Just to make sure I haven't burned through.
Yeah.
It's pain when you see that little yellow alert pop up in the right corner. You
Insufficient
have
funds.
$2.30, and this race is $2.90.
Lies. Where's my credit card?
Yeah. So yeah, they've many quality of life improvements, a lot of which have been based on community feedback. The game is still evolving, and a lot of changes have been made during this closed beta period, from race generation to allow more sub $5 races to race logic that prevented chickens from running backwards over the finish line. We're always observing the chat and looking at race data, and plan to have more changes ready for the open beta to ensure the best possible chicken racing experience for all users. So yeah, there could be some more things down the pipe. Time for talent animation. In total, we need some 99 individual animations to cover the 20 talents that we have planned so far. That is because each talent is made up of multiple animations. Blue Egg, for example, requires 3 animations, one for the chicken laying the egg, a second for the egg impacting the victim, and a third for the chicken victim to be left dazed for a short period of time. And here's that animation of the egg launching.
Yeah, this pretty much looked exactly like you wanted it to.
Yep.
Just poop out that egg.
Oh,
and then fire off.
That looks like
extra,
pain.
I like the extra little jump it gives. It's like a woof. That just came out.
I mean, that egg is bigger than the chicken.
Yeah.
Oof. That's a nice freeze frame. Currently 87 of excuse me, 87 of the 99 animations are complete, with the remaining 12 just needing some adjustments. We're really excited about getting these animations implemented and in the game as soon as possible. When?
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
Soon.
87 of 99 means it's close. It's very
Deli
close,
did say it would be on a Monday.
A Monday. Probably not this Monday.
But a Monday.
A Monday.
He took it personally when we said he wasn't the funny one. I'm telling you. Insert the Michael Jordan meme.
I'm just saying, on the day that he was off, we got overnight racing. So
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So who's the fun one?
Not the fun one. Yeah.
Like I said, as soon as Apex said, thinking about leaving it run all night, and I was like, I know what's going on. Deli's on vacation for a day, huh?
Apex went for a run, listened to the show. He was like, you know what?
Let's go. Let
get
it ride. All right, that's all for the dev blog. Thank you for sticking with them as they want to deliver to you the chicken racing experience you all deserve. So stay tuned to the announcements for the latest updates, and we'll see you very soon for more races. That is likely going to be tomorrow morning, which would be Monday, since we're live.
Yeah, right around the corner. And then, we're probably having, how many people do you think a day come in right now and ask when racing in the main chat?
Wow.
It feels like
up.
Yeah, it feels like it's like 20 people that pop in and just constantly asking when open is.
They're seeing those podiums posted on Twitter.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
Speaking of those,
yeah.
Actually,
Segue.
I'm gonna just get into that right now, since before we get into some real race talk and that stuff. Speaking of podiums, while you're here, first off, like and subscribe to the show if you're new here. Also, speaking of podiums, we are going to be doing a little contest, and that is during this entire week of races, pending we get a full week of races if everything goes well.
How many days do you want to say? Do you want to say, like, if we get 3 or more days that we do this?
I'm just going to say Monday through Friday, any races.
Okay.
And if there's none, then, well, rip.
Yeah, we got bigger problems in our contest if there's none.
So this contest, speaking of podiums, this entire week, Monday through Friday, we want you to post a win with any of your chickens in a race that you've entered on Twitter. Take a screenshot, post it on Twitter, tag @BitLovin for Chicken Derby, and tag @CockTalkDerby, and possibly maybe tag some friends, new people into Chicken Derby. Why not? And yeah, just start tagging and posting those podium wins. We want to see them, and we want to see
First place.
those
First place wins.
First place
Yep.
wins. We want to
Only
see
winners.
those get thrown around on the internet a little more. And the contest is every time that you get a podium win. Is it one? We enter one entry. Yeah, if you get a win,
one per. Yeah,
One per account.
Yeah.
one per chicken.
When you get
One
your
per
podium, when you get your win this week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you get a win this week while you're racing at all this week, share it on Twitter, tag @BitLovin, @CockTalkDerby, and then head to our Discord, which you can find on our Twitter page. There's a link right there, and there will be a channel. And we'll put a tweet out tomorrow when we start races about the contest, and it'll have all the information of what channel to be in. But then we want you to share the link of the tweet in that channel, so then we can keep track of everybody that is, in the contest.
Yeah, that will be the submission. That'll be the easiest way to keep it together. So, put it on Twitter, then drop that link into the new channel we have, and that is the submission right there. So that's the key to get.
It's going to be a wheel spin, right?
And if you're on the Twitter,
Yes,
like on the tweet, make sure you, like, if you can, share a link of your bird just so we can verify that it is your bird. Don't want no people copy pasta out there with a podium.
Well, that's why you got to
they'll
come into Discord.
I'm
and
sure
do it.
they'll get
Yeah.
called out quick. If not.
Yeah, that's why you got to come into the Discord and drop it in the channel. That's the easiest way there. This way we can do a little bit of a Twitter thing, but it's not like
But
random
wait,
people are coming on and just grabbing some,
what are we giving away?
Oh,
You didn't tell them
What
what
are
we're
we
giving away.
we are giving away.
You just said we're having a contest.
Yeah, we're having a contest. We're
It's
giving
for
away
fun.
a dove bird. Giving away a dove bird this week,
Oh.
and we'll do that. We'll do a wheel spin, and like I said, make sure I'll have we'll have a tweet that it lays out all the details that you need to do. But yeah, tweet out those wins. Make sure you tag us, and then
Fledge,
just
you'll
drop
get a
it in
win.
our
You don't have
chat,
to
and-
Photoshop.
Yeah, like Fledge has to worry about it. Seven Merc wants to know what if his chicks are allergic to the podium. Well, then talk to Fledge. He'll help you out.
This week you're gonna win. Seven.
Just keep
Merc.
racing.
The BAWK father has broken chickens as well. I think you and I do as well. So maybe we need to get together and figure that out.
Yeah, that's
Or-
broken chickens.
Or at least form a support group.
Yeah,
Yes,
we can do
broken
that.
chicken support group.
Right. So races.
And next week
we
will
all
be the
got-
contest for 12th place.
well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I said next week
So
the contest will be for
that
12th.
contest will end Friday after, or I don't know. Maybe we'll have weekend races by then. But we're gonna make a cutoff for Friday.
Yeah.
That way we can do a wheel spin and get that winner a dove bird.
Yes, it has to be a win from this week.
Yep, from
Yeah,
this
Monday
point
through
on to
Friday.
Friday. Yep.
Yes.
All right. So races, theories. Tyler, you said you were just scattershotting birds around, kind of. I
That's why I started. Yeah, I'm over
I've-
almost 300 races, and the early thought in my head was just grab the birds that I want to get the data on as much as I can. So obviously, I went to my top end birds because everything's going to reset, and I just wanted to get a data point on all of them. So I did a bunch of different races, and then I tried to come up with theories based on that, and I think I'm figuring it out now, but I had to lose a lot first to figure it out. That's for sure.
My
man.
strategy was scatterbrained at first because I was
just a
looking,
racing animal at first. Yeah,
I
that's-
raced every single bird until I ran out, and it said no
Mhm.
more chickens in available to run.
Yep.
And I had like 15 waiting in the
Did
queue.
that.
But
But I was all
really
about
just
data.
been sticking to my Seramas because if I race, that's the thing. I don't even have that large of a coop. Like right now, I have 15 chickens.
That's me.
Not that many chickens, but if I'm entering every single one of those birds into a race and I don't even know what I'm doing, I'm gonna have a bad day.
Yeah,
Right.
it's gonna.
So,
Yeah.
I've cut that number in half for the most part. I think I've been racing 6 to 7 chickens on a rotation throughout every session,
Mhm.
just so I can kind of, and I've got some that are up over 20 races and some that are just in the teens. So it's just trying to figure out what my birds are good at. I think I got a couple figured out. My 94 Serama, I was trying to get him out of the A class, but he ended up winning. So I don't know what to do with that one. I'm gonna pick and choose, I guess.
Yeah, as easy as it is to, well, unless you want to learn about my timing, trusting the times theory, which will get you 20 straight losses in a row guaranteed. Then I don't. Not financial advice, doing research. But yeah,
that's only 20 races, though, man.
I
Spread
know,
that
yeah.
out over 100, and maybe you win 30 to 40 of them. You got to
Well,
think about
I
the
switched up
consistency. I'm just
quickly.
saying it. You don't. It's just a small sample.
Don't
No,
encourage
I-
him to test it 80 more races.
No.
Well, I switched quickly and went back to some other convictions I had and ended up, I think, getting on a podium for 7 of the last 9. So I was doing something wrong. I'm pretty sure of that. I know 20 races isn't a huge correlation to really go off of, but yeah,
It is a big losing streak, though.
It is.
It does sting a
It
little.
did.
Yeah.
I was
Actually got
definitely-
big enough that he counted it.
I
So
was
Yeah.
definitely lamenting it. Well, once it went over 10, I was like, I went back and I was like, wow, I lost 5 races to end the last day too. So it's already 15. So yeah.
Yeah, I ran a bunch of races with pretty much all my birds, but then I was looking more at the data from an overall perspective. Basically, what I thought I could do is get enough data to where I could look on the market and be like, that is a bird that I know that can run at this track. However, that I don't think is possible, or it's very, very hard to do. So I've transitioned more into like what Dave's kind of been doing, and I'll let him explain.
Well, I think we've all
his
kind of
approach.
noticed that. I know I've noticed that what what he's going to go into here, and I even sent a picture to Tyler. I was in a race with a very like the exact same one of the exact same birds as mine, essentially, almost like same perfection, same color, same beak, same everything, and it just tore ass, and mine didn't. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. That's my twin. Why can't my bird do that well? So yeah, it comes down to they're all different, right?
Yeah, Dave.
Every bird is unique and special and in their own way. But no, I think like I started looking at sort of the macro data, the big picture, like what does background color mean? What does base body mean? Is that telling me anything about their preferences? Was there anything in the tutorial that tells me, oh, Lackenvelders are good at this and Dorkings are good at that, so I know what surface to run them on? I'm like, Dorkings are good in their home country, so I'm going to run them on all the English tracks. But there's so much there that we don't even like, even at 2,000 races, I don't think we have the data to start even testing any of that macro stuff. So instead, I've just dialed in as micro as I can get. I'm basically at this point, I'm basically racing one chicken because it started winning. So I just stayed, okay, I'm going to focus in on that one, sort of test around the edges. When I felt I had, I kind of lucked into feeling like I had the distance, because you get a win kind of starting scatter shot, and then it's like, okay, we'll run that back. Does good again. Okay, we'll keep going there. And then I tried a couple different terrains at the same distance to see, okay, is it still good on other terrains? It's like, it was okay. I won on grass after some track wins. So I'm like, okay, starting to think I've got a preferred race. So I just ran that one. Now I'm in A class, and we'll see how tomorrow treats that bird. But then my hope is to kind of take that same approach to the next bird down the line. I think my first one, I got lucky that it seems to be consistent, and I seem to have hit on its preferred track sort of in the first 3 tests. I don't think that is a realistic experience for most birds. I think if I go now and say I want to dial in my 94 Sultan or something, I don't expect to have any sense of where it's best at. Even it might take 10, 15 races to start to see, okay, maybe I've now got a distance and a terrain. Because what really scares me is having an inconsistent chicken.
Yeah.
And you run it on its preferred track, but it decides to throw up a stinker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to know that. I'm not going to know anything about that chicken now until I go back and get a good performance.
Well, this is the thing that, just to go back just real quick for 1 second to when you were saying that you're now worried about your bird going to A. And I had a 94 Serrama white beak that was killing it. 7 wins in 16 races, all in B. I get to A, it starts getting its ass handed to him, but not badly where it was ranking down. It was a lot of 5, 6, and 4s. So it was stuck in A for a long time. And all of a sudden I amassed about 12 more races with nothing. So yeah. So when Fledge was talking before about the competition, Poseidon was talking about last week too, about once his horse actually went up against proper competition, they started running into problems. There's definitely going to be a skill there to try to figure out how to declass your bird if you can, because it seems like my bird's going to do a really nice job in B, but it just can't. It simply isn't meant for A, especially with the way that A has some monster birds in it right now.
The other thing that, oh, go ahead, Dave.
There's some birds who got into A because they have a high perfection and they won their first race.
Yeah.
And there's other birds that got into A because they've been dialed in. So when I see, that other bird that's got a 50% placement rate over 20 races, it's like, yeah, they belong in A. They've done their work. And if they're on their preferred track, they're probably going to be hard to beat at this point.
But even in A's, we've seen things crazy like Memory Reset, for instance, that won those 2 big races that were 2 completely different races, right? Those weren't the same races.
Yeah, I believe him says that he was actually like unsure about putting him that one because he didn't think that was its track.
So consistency, does that have to do with terrain or distance or a combination of both?
Well,
don't
this
know.
is
That's-
where it's
So,
going to
but
be
to Dave's
yeah.
kind of strategy, like when you're looking at that, like we kind of did a little game first. I was saying, if you had first running your first bird first time, how would you run it, right? And I think if you placed first, you said you would run it again, right? And if it went, or no, you.
Yeah. No, what you had asked was like, what would I do first? I said,
Yeah.
I'd just enter the first cheap race I see.
Yeah.
And if I finish anywhere off the podium, I'm just going to enter the next cheap race I see, keep repeating that until I see that bird hit the podium. And then I'm going to run that podium race back and start to collect a little bit more focused data on that specific track, just to test like, okay, are they showing a preference towards
Is that an
Is there
outlier
anything,
or is that the track? Yeah.
yeah, did they
That's-
just happen to have a good run one time on that track and it means nothing? Or is there something?
That's kind of where I'm at with mine, because it's, I've seen, my Black Cerama, for instance, it won on 160 track, it won on 140 rock, and it won on like a 160 grass, I think, too. So, I've tried to keep it on road and track, and the tracks that are the other things that I've seen it get podiums on that I think it's doing well on, but are those just outliers because I don't have enough proper data collected on that bird? And then you also throw in the fact that once talents get implemented into this, and then what happens with, maybe you have a really consistent bird that's running really well and is doing well all the time, but then once talents get dropped in, you're at the mercy, and your bird's not really doing that well.
Well,
because we don't know how that will all correlate.
So
if
what do
it's
you-
a high consistency bird, maybe the talent goes off more often or something. Like
Little
that.
tinfoil real quick for you guys. What do you think is going to be more when it comes to these talents going off? Is it going to be the talent that has a more winning effect, or the defense that some of these birds have that allow them to win because those talents are taking out the other birds?
For what it's worth, we just got today the tweet from BitLove and Com this morning from the devs is visible traits. Each chicken has various traits. Some of you can see clearly. Understanding these traits for your chicken and what they mean can will help you get the best for your chicken. And they show everything: eye type, beak, all the different categories you see on OS. So it's all there, and it's all meant to do something.
Yeah.
And that is going to make it complicated. So in that regard, I think it's just, again, going to be such a difficult counterbalance in trying to figure out what works well, that I think once you do figure out what works for your bird, sticking with it and being consistent in that regard is going to be huge. Because if you variate too much on like, I think I'm going up against someone here and my talent doesn't work there. If you get too cute, I think it's going to hurt you, because getting too cute, adding in too many variables, it just gets messy.
I think it is to a certain extent, but like you said, once your bird gets outclassed in A, it's going to be good to know what track to downclass on. So in order to find out their negative tracks, you're going to have to test them, right? Which means you're going to have to take losses of money in order to find out those negative tracks. And so that was kind of my theory at first. By running my birds as many times really as I could, I'm finding not only their good tracks, but also hopefully some of their negative tracks. So when it does come time for me to say, okay, I'm ready for my real strategy of how I'm going to make money in this game, I know when I want to down class, and now I'm able to do that.
Now, something that I want to really work on this week with my birds is identifying the tracks in which they do first, second, and third very well, but also 10, 11, and 12, just to try to figure out basically this concept. If you have a good bird and they've dialed in this bird to be a successful chicken, are you going to then get more 10, 11s, and 12s with your first, second, and thirds and not get the fourth, fifth, and sixth so often? That way it actually has a chance to go up and down, so U-shape in that regard. So it's like, are they actually building that into the system, or as a fourth or a fifth place actually say, hey, you're close, this wasn't a bad race for you, you just missed?
Well,
And
I think
that's
it's
a tough
part.
one.
I think it's part of that. It depends on what class you're in. If you're getting fourth in the C's, right? Chances are if you're in a C class, those birds are probably not running on their right track for the most of them. Maybe 9 out of 12 are running on the wrong track, so 3 are right, which means if your bird is running right, you should be one of the three, right? In a C race. However, if you're one of the three in the A race, chances are even those higher end birds that aren't on their right track might be able to beat you. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So-
and for those that are stressed right now that their birds aren't doing great, I see a lot of people saying their birds are junk. My birds aren't great. I can't figure it out. Hell,
My birds are junk.
I've texted Josh so many times about this 97 white beak Serama. I'm like, what the hell? I thought this was my best bird coming into the before I raced it, and I can't figure it out. What's also worth considering here is that it's not the same 100 birds, but it feels like it sometimes. Like it's a lot of the same birds racing over and over again. It's a lot of the same coops racing over and over again. A lot of people are getting the same ones in. So once we have an open beta and there's just so many more birds into the system, you might see just a little bit of a cream rising to the top, or you may see that, oh, I did have my track locked down properly. I was just going against competition that was just beating me.
Yeah.
Well, and we're seeing way too much fall into B class, and we know that, and the devs know that, and they've said that after the reset, they want to do some things a little bit differently in terms of how chickens go into classes after their chick race.
Yeah, they were talking about resetting the pecking order of the birds, weren't they?
Yeah, but I think with the intent of not having, all 30,000 birds fall into B after their chick race, right? Some need to get into C quick, some need to get into A quick, so that we have.
I think I've been thinking about this because we've been kind of talking about this off air, right? Well, I think the solution, if they're going to go with 3 classes, I think that they have to raise them up. So, and make also the plus and minus points greater. So instead of 4 points for first, I think maybe they need 8 points. And so what that would do is push the high end A birds up towards 100, and they'll be stuck up there, right? Whereas if they're truly in B, they're going to fall more towards the B level. Does that make sense? So I think that's one of the solutions that maybe, unless either that or add more classes. But as you've said, with this number of birds, adding more classes doesn't make sense.
I'm being assaulted in the chat to say something. Fledge said, I'm petitioning once again to call bad birds dodos. And I just got tagged, which comes up as bright red. It's like attacking me.
Angry.
Please correct it to dodos for now on. Crazy J64 says so. Dodos? Do we like that? Does that work? Calling them dodos? No bad birds, just dodo birds. Isn't a dodo bird extinct? That's not good.
I mean, that's an entire.
Well, that is a pretty good thing for your bird. Might as well be extinct.
We'll play with it. We'll see if it works.
Okay. So classes.
But on the note of classes, there, like. If you do that, if you are putting higher dodo, I know
dodo.
Yeah. Bring it together.
Go to that.
Oh, I'm a step ahead of everyone.
Okay.
Imagine
if you do have either like a +8, like you said, or a -8, then there would be more variance. Things would be kicked around a lot faster. People wouldn't get stuck necessarily in B as often. It's possible, because the other option that we've talked about is more classes. And I know Dave doesn't like more classes right now, and I think that's okay to not want them more right now, but down the line, if they can't get this lined up properly and we start getting breeding down the line, I think they could consider it. But Dave, what are your thoughts there in general as far as like how it looks right now and with the 3 classes and what Blake was talking about? I know you wanted to get in on this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people who think, more classes, spread out the competition, more birds will be winners in that scenario, and you'll be able to avoid the memory resets of the field that are just too good for you to go up against. But I think putting on a bit of looking at it as the developers and a bit of it looking as the end user, when we're into open beta and everything starts to get kind of shaken into the right places, you're gonna have, just to use round numbers, about 10,000 birds in each class. That doesn't mean they're all online trying to enter races at the same time. Doesn't mean they're all looking to enter the same race and the same price point. So you need a large pool of coops and of chickens in each class to ensure that we're filling races on a regular basis. Right now, that's not a problem because the appetite, even just of the however many thousand coops are in beta, is just sky high to get into races. Like they're filling them kind of as fast as their fingers can click. But I don't think that sustains kind of a month down the road where it starts getting a little more intentional. You know, I know what birds I want to run and where I want to run them. And so I'm waiting for specific races at specific price points. So you want to have enough people that we're still filling things out. Now, fast forward to breeding is live and we're starting to see any sort of exponential growth in the number of chickens, then yes, we might need more classes to separate them out better, especially if robust chickens are struggling to keep up with spices, just in a general broad sense. We know some of them might come out better than their parents, but for the most part, if they're coming out lower perfection and they're struggling against the original spicy generation, what I don't want to see then is all the spices kind of getting grouped up towards the top together. So that
what I hope there, go ahead, Josh. That's all right. You know what? No, screw you, Josh. I'm gonna talk.
No, fuck off. That's my turn. I always try to talk, and then I let someone else talk in front of me, and then I don't get to talk for like 10 minutes. And my point
Josh is in a bad mood
today.
Your point's no longer valid.
I interrupted him. I interrupted him about know your wallet, not IO, and now he just.
Josh, don't lose your thoughts. He's got a short. It's only in his head for a few seconds. Come on, Josh.
I keep going back to consistency. And I don't know why, but it just stands out in my head as the one thing still that we can't figure out. And that is, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. Does each bird have a set number consistency, and that does that go into a race and then it's just a dice roll from there? Because I think very much so that it doesn't like the I don't think like the, you know, like we've seen a lot of 100s and 99s just tear away and go up right up into A class because they're good birds. But I've had like my 90, like I just keep going back to my 94. It has been doing decent in A, and I think it's just a consistent bird.
What if your consistency is just tied to something silly like what lane your bird ends up in? So
now I've kind of thought about that too. Like I've been trying to look at lanes.
It's a way to randomize it enough.
And I've seen a bird that's won twice in lane 5, and then it doesn't do very well in other lanes.
Okay, my turn. Dave, go.
No, I'm just thinking about.
I say this because Dave and I were talking about this, and he has a theory about this, and I actually thought.
Oh, I didn't know this.
So yeah.
I hope I say the right thing now. I don't know what theory I have, but
no, it was based on the dice roll and the probability. We were talking about that as far as consistency and how you kind of thought that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've approached it, even before we had races, and I haven't changed my mind on it per se since we started racing, is that you have a range of potential performances that you can produce. A consistent bird is the bird that's going to hit, a 7 out of 10 every single time. They're going to be around in the mix. The inconsistent bird is, again, that's where you get your U shape on their know your wallet graph, because they're going to hit a 10 out of 10, or they might throw out a 0 out of 10 because their range is extremely wide.
So, but what if you get 12 birds that are all the same, around the same consistency? What differentiates that order of the race?
Here's the thing, that's the dice roll effect. If it could be a consistency that each bird could have a very high consistency going into the race, but then once you enter the race, does that just get boom? Then it's randomized from there.
Well, that's the thing, and that's where I feel like in the end this is going to be very difficult.
Those close races that you see like all 8-9 birds that are right. I've seen races where it's 9 birds across the finish line. You can't even tell which one got first or third.
Well, that's the thing, and with the dice roll, with the ability to have all these numbers crunch and then compound, and then it spits out the result. There is so much, like Blake said, what if they're all consistent birds? Then it's going to go, okay, then who has the best terrain? Then who has the best, and this town goes off, who has the best base body that took over those talents, or however that works. And it's all going to compute and spit out. And you can have a good idea of how it's going to, but there's just so many factors. This is probably where it comes down to how we're going to have a good idea of our birds, but never really crack this code, which is probably a good thing. But if we really crack the code, then it's not good for the game. but you're going to have a good idea. But there's so many of these factors. And just from that tweet again this morning, they're taunting us with the idea of, yeah, this has way more probabilities and on dice rolls that you're not going to be able to figure out. But if you play it wisely, you might get close and at least be more consistent, especially if it's a consistent bird.
Your dial-up internet not working very well tonight?
I thought that you're skipping it
You're
out.
skipping a little.
Yeah, there were great points when you weren't skipped out, though. Don't worry.
I actually thought it was my connection, honestly.
Like, if you were thinking about going, and then you had this little thing, then it's just like, no.
We got your point, though.
Bad.
We got it.
All right, I'm done for tonight. Go ahead.
You might have been hitting the mute button.
How's it feel, Tyler?
It feels sad. But yeah, basic concept is just there's so many dice rolls. There's so many computations. There's so many different things to put in. We might get close.
But Dave would argue against that because everything is it's the algorithms are more simplistic to that point, right, Dave?
Well, the algorithm isn't simple.
Well, I mean,
you've got heritage, perfection, consistency, terrain, distance preference, any cosmetics that are thrown into that
those are all
blender.
just variables in an equation.
But that's the thing.
Spit 'em
It doesn't
in,
have to be
spit it out.
20 to make it really hard to figure out. If it's even 5 on 5 on 5, those things exponentially jump and it becomes very hard to figure out.
Yeah,
It
but
all
what
goes
Dave
back
was
to
that by
the
twelve
pattern
birds,
ratings
yeah.
that we've been talking
Well,
about.
yeah.
Each bird has a wide, probably possibly a range
Mhm.
Well,
of,
and with
of variables.
and with so many traits, what if 3 of them or 4 of them have racing effects, and what if 4 of them have breeding effects, right? So it's hard to see.
we don't know yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if that was the case, which exact 4 to use, right? And that's kind of some of the data that I was running early where, and I broke about 50-50, but it wasn't, the data is not, there's not enough there. I think you need to have over 1,000 races of a specific bird on each track before you can even come to any kind sort of set conclusion.
Well, 1,000 races on each
1,000.
track?
1,000,
Terrain?
which it doesn't have to be your bird. What I'm saying is 1,000 of anything. So 1,000 bloodshot eyes on dirt to get a good grasp of what that even looks like.
But how will you
Or-
ever isolate for that variable? Because every chicken with bloodshot eyes is different from the next chicken with
Right,
bloodshot
and
eyes.
so
It's
this
gonna be
is-
so
but-
hard to
but-
correct for that variance.
But if you look and say, okay, bloodshot eyes plus the lilac background is perfect on this particular track.
He's out of his mind.
Again, there
Crazy
is
Jason.
some shit to it like that.
No, hold
There
on.
is these
Be-
variables that are connected in certain ways that equal a certain thing. We just
But you-
don't know which one of A, B, C, D, E, F variable equals.
But here's part of the game, and I think here's part of the discovery of the game is you're going to have to decide what things you found with your bird you want to attach to. Be like, that's what I think is working for them. I don't think there's a straightforward even as we do this, we're probably going to argue that my bird's doing well here because of these 3 things that I've focused on, and that's working. And we all kind of get to decide how we're going to lay down these chips based on all the different parts we have. So it is going to be a bit of a,
somebody needs to Google
battleground.
this, but a real statistician will look and say you don't get a stat or you can't say a conclusion until you have, I think it's like 1,100 of any one variable. I think that's the rule. Correct. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a
they'll
rule of
correct you.
stats that
Oh, the
is,
Rule
but
of Blake.
it is. It's like, I think it's 1,100 before you can even get any type of
But I think
concrete.
like we've seen, I think BAWK Father is pretty deep into the Excel of it all.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you'll find something that might make a percentage point or 2 difference. It might make you more efficient in where you start those early tests by looking at that macro level data. But when you're talking about your ROI and everything, getting to understand your bird a race or 2 faster makes a financial difference especially when you're talking about a larger coop, right? Like I can't race my 20 birds 20 times each before I start getting serious about them when the races aren't free.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No,
That's
yeah.
what I'm
no.
saying. I'm My coop is not large at all, but if I were racing my 15 birds every day and trying to gather as much data as I can on them, I would be living in a box outside. And
I got
my
lucky.
family would be
If I
gone.
didn't break even for the 2 days, there's no way I would have raced past the first day.
Yeah.
Now I keep seeing people say this, and it's like you're like flat earthers. I know you're just joking. Brian Harmon said, "I think the temperature at the race time is what really matters." Someone was asking if the weather at the moment matters.
The starting time of day.
Disruptors, get out of here. Someone was like, "My bird's a morning racer." Like,
But here's a legitimate question,
No, it's
Dave,
not.
because
Who's
how
morning?
easy would it be for them to switch up some of these variables? So they could decide in 6 months to just completely change something up, right? Easily just swap things out. And now all of our data is kind of up in smoke.
Okay. And some of that is an extremely slippery slope.
yeah,
Okay. And
Well, it depends on what variables you tweak. As long as they don't tweak
Nope.
the heritage variables.
no, all of it, in my opinion, gets real slippery real fast. If there is a communicated reset where we all know as
No,
holders
not a
that
reset, it's
there's
just a
going to
new
be any
season.
sort of changing of the algorithm, but if they shift things in the dark of night
What if it's
and
designed to shift?
nerf your birds
Oh,
without any communication, because if the algorithm that you figured out shifts on you and your bird stops racing,
Yeah.
like,
well, that's kind of why I
That's
feel
what
like
Zed
it's
ran into a lot, wasn't it?
and I think they can do it if they like communicate,
But
like,
what if
hey, we're
it's
going into a
designed to
new
shift?
season, we're going to change some things
if
up.
it's designed to shift, then it might just be too random, and I don't know if that's good for the game. I think they just at the point where already at this point there are so many variables that we get to consider here that I don't know if it has to. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to figure this out. You might figure your bird out, one bird out, and that'll be good, but then you still have the consistency factor. I think that's the interesting part of it, is that even if you think you figured something out,
did you?
then what was that?
I was saying, did you really figure it out though? Eventually,
Right,
if you
well,
figure it
yeah.
out and you say, "Oh, I've got this guy figured out," and then all of a sudden he starts losing, are you going to think that there's a change
Well,
in
that's where
variable?
Well, that's where the patience really comes into. And that's the part that I like have to remind myself of big time, is that, like, you know, if you were doing well and you go through a bad stretch, you know, variance usually comes around as long as you're not just obviously running them on their worst setup and it never comes around. But, you know, as I was joking earlier, yeah, I had 20 losses in a row, but then I went 7 of 9. Okay. Was that because I changed something, or was that because variance kind of finally came around in my favor? Law of average kind of mentality. So sometimes sticking with it is really important, especially in this case. And if you really focus too much in, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Fledge brings up a good point. He says it can't be too random because legally it has to be a game of skill. And I think
Right.
he's got a point.
Right.
So and I've been kind of describing it to some people lately as it's more like poker, in the sense of it is a game of skill, but it's also a game of luck, depending on what hand, but you have to choose how to play that hand. Right.
Yeah,
and so,
yeah. But that's it. But that's the thing, same with the blackjack and whatnot. It's like,
Yeah.
you know the numbers. That's why you play a hand a certain way.
But if
I'm
they
coming in
can
and sticking with it, yeah.
if they could randomize 25% of the variable that we don't know, and that was to change, it would have some change in effects, obviously, but I don't know if it would have earth-shattering effects.
Well, Tigger said it too. It's like people will not stay if it's totally random. Not totally
Yeah.
random, but how much randomness, like the acts of God or whatnot, how much of that can be put in before it just gets a little too frustrating. But, you know, that's why I stick with the idea of poker. It's like, you know the numbers, you know your chances. If you're looking at that flop and you say, okay, there's a pretty good, I know I have a 66% chance that, you know, my hand here is going to win. It's still a good chance I'm going to lose, but I'll play that 66 every single time.
Here's what we know. There's 133 very different track, or is that what it said? Different variables earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. different
Okay.
constructs.
Multiply. So if you multiply that times the 3 classes, there's what? 300 and call it. What's the math there?
About 399.
There we go. Perfect. So out of that means if if there's one bird that was the best at all those, right, then there's 400 birds that are going to be winners if everybody was running, right? Does that make sense? If that bird is the best, so some level of randomization has to happen so we don't have a memory reset, or I'm just using him as an example,
Well, yeah.
into every race, and it wins every race.
But it's not going to win every race.
Oh, but
Right.
even if memory reset wins 33% of the time and podiums, another 20% of the time, like
Let's just say
that's
50%. Yeah, that's
an extremely
crazy.
profitable bird, and that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the range you want your best birds to be in. If it gets too random that nobody's making money, nobody's going to stick around. We understand that,
Well,
it
I
is-
think,
the
but again,
house-
we got to remember where we're at though, because we're not making money from racing. I don't think anybody here's plans for the most part are going to be making money from racing. We want though our bred birds to have a randomness effect to them, so more people buy our birds.
But
right?
If nobody's making money, if there's no showing profitability, nobody's coming into the game, right? You need
I think they're coming to the game for that lottery ticket of the chance to make money.
Yeah, but
that's fair. But
you got to see other winners of the lottery.
Like even just like sports gambling, like the best ones are at 58%. And if you're smart about it, playing at 58%, you're going to do okay.
But
especially
I still
if
do
you
it every
understand
year at 40%. And I know every single year. And why do I do it? Because it's
that's
fun.
part of it.
I know I'm not going to win every time.
That's always going to bring people in, but there's also other avenues. You could just decide to stop playing the game because it's kind of driving me crazy. But no, I get it. And we're going all over the place now, and we're probably going to keep these ones are going to get real rambling and all over the place because we are full of things to be talking about. And I honestly don't know what the best way is. That's why we're kind of bringing it up. Yeah.
I don't know. I think again, at the end of the day, the randomness is in the consistency of the chickens. And then what you will find is, I can't imagine that the spicy generation of chickens consistency is very poor, right? I would imagine that their consistency is in a decent range of, like 75 to 100, but we're also going against all other spices at this time. So the range of outcomes with all the birds that are lumped in together, that are all in the same generation, that are all very close in the sense of their, like, again, we go back to the old adage of we're talking about 90 perfection to 100, and we're going to have a range of 0 to 100 down the road. It's all these birds just packed into these 3 classes that we have right now.
And I'm kind of hoping that like spicy, robust, even fresh, like I'm hoping they all kind of can compete with each other, in some regard, because that'll make it a little more fun. That'll keep things a little more, just kind of alive and active. And then of course, maybe spicy is a better breeder than, everything, and robust is better than fresh. And maybe that's where that comes from. But there's going to be so many birds coming out from robust and fresh and then all the way down the bland. But I do hope that robust and fresh and maybe even some crisp here and there are coming out with some racers that can, still have a shot at it. And maybe they're just a little less consistent.
Yeah.
Well, we all need that to happen.
Yeah.
We all need we all need other people to want to buy our bred chickens.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of my point. If spices are always winning every time, nobody's going to buy the babies.
Well, and that's that's the thing kind of where Poseidon was talking last week about how once there was down the road generations of horses, the Z1 Knacks weren't like winning all the time like they were before. And there were horses that were generations down the road that were kicking ass. And
this is why I was leaning towards comb and wattle having something to do with it, because once breeding starts to happen, those are going to be separated into colors. And I think those colors might match up to certain train or distance in the future and align better than their parents.
Back on the foil.
That's we don't know yet. But there's still
that's the only thing that's going to be different combos of colors, right?
Right, but it still, if that kind of still leads into things changing down the line as you go, so that's the only thing that I start looking at. And like Dave was talking about, the slippery slope of like if things vary too much as they go, if things change, if they mess things and not mess things up, but actually throw some different things in there as we go, then everything that we set in place kind of throws us off. And like Wu-Tang actually said, he's like, I want to be profitable at racing and then know my birds so I can beat people that buy the new birds. And that's fair, because if you know your birds well, you'll actually be able to then have your advantage against the new people coming in. And that's probably where a lot of the profitable racing is going to come from. You know, all of us that really figure out our birds early on, yeah, it'll probably be difficult for let's just say, 100 coops that really know their birds and they race them on the right tracks. That probably is going to end up being, 50-50 in a lot of ways. It kind of divvied out to the point where no one's really winning. But as new people enter and as you have a better idea, if you stick and stay consistent and go with your plan and are patient with it long term, I think that's where you can actually make some money long term racing.
All right. So after all that, final thoughts going into this week, could potentially see longer race sessions, longer than the average, 4 to 5, 6 hour sessions we were getting last week. We may actually see some all-nighters being pulled off. What are your guys' strategies for that to keep you from sitting there all day entering every race? Because I find it very difficult to get any work done when I'm at work all day and there's a race session going on, and I'm like, I want to get into that one. Oh,
my son likes to hide
my
things.
Bird's good at.
My son likes to hide things around the house. I think I'm going to give my charger to my son so he can hide it.
Yeah,
honestly, my strategy, since I've been doing a lot of tracking as well, I've set myself to where I only do my tracking during when racing's going on to keep myself from racing as much. So I will enter a bird. First off, I've been more selective, so it's taken some times for the races to pop up that I actually want to enter. But when I find what I want to enter, in between time, I'm just tracking my bird or working.
I find myself not being patient enough because I'll get a bird that I just get out of a race, and then I'll be sitting there waiting for that bird's that I think already, that bird's track and distance, just sitting there waiting, and then a similar one pops up, maybe a 140 or a different type of terrain but the same distance, and I'm like, well, maybe it's good at that one.
Maybe. And how does that go?
Nerds with Time says once 24-hour race begins, I will be broke.
Yep.
Or you'll just be liquidating other NFTs. Just find your way back. Is there a pawn shop for NFTs? I guess there's some things out there you can loan them out.
Or swap meet.
Yeah.
Chicken swap meet. Where it at? No, so I think that might, down the line, once we get into, the metaverse and tokenomics of the game, that might actually be a little more easier for people to be able to race a little more often if they include that and introduce that as a way to enter races and such, or tournaments or whatever whatever have you. Yeah. Well, if you guys don't have anything else you want to hit on this week, I'd say we could probably wrap.
Oh, there's a lot more to get into, but we have to stop at some point.
We
here.
we can't.
Dave has to go to bed.
Renaming.
We talk chickens in the chat all day long.
Yeah. Oh, renaming. Yeah, that was actually a cool thing. This is something that doesn't pop in all the time. This is why we do the Developer Nugget channel in our Coop Collective Discord, is because they drop these things sometimes and it's not anywhere where everyone sees. But Chicken Derby Apex did confirm that there will be some sort of token that can be used down the line to rename. So for those of you that are looking at a bird and you don't love the name, or it's named Monster Cock and you should have bought it and
should have bought that Monster Cock
forever. It was a hen too, so it was like, come on, like everything was wrong.
That's
everything
what
was
makes
right
it funny, Tyler.
Thank you.
That's the joke.
Oh, no. Good night.
Got him. Yeah, anyways,
finish the show.
Yeah, we're gonna be starting a little contest on Twitter. Be driving a little engagement there, so be on the lookout for our tweet tomorrow morning once the races start. We'll be running that all week, Monday through Friday, as long as we have races this week. That competition will be good, so try and get them wins, people. You may possibly win a chicken at the end of the week. Yeah, so next weekend, I believe we might have a guest. I think we've got a guest. Pretty sure we have a guest.
So we don't rip each other apart. We probably should have a guest. It probably we didn't quite
we did
get
all right
yet.
tonight. I don't know.
No,
I finally got to lay my hammer down a little bit on you. Interrupt you for a change, but yeah. So just be on the lookout at Cock Talk Derby on Twitter. You can get any updates from there. We usually any news that we see in the Chicken Coop chat, the the Derby Twitter is usually tweeting it out, and be tweeting out those wins and podiums and everything.
One win.
We get you retweeted.
One win.
But yeah, you can check us out. We are the Coop Collective. We got a Discord. The link is in the comments section there. Got a website, Coop Collective IO. Go solicit that. Needs a little updating, but yeah, I am at Grateful Coops in the Chicken Coop Discord. I have MBF Express above me.
One thing before we go.
God damn it.
We're done. No, one more thing. Well, I'll make sure that everything gets dropped in the Discord and announcement. So if you're confused at all about the contest we have coming, we'll make sure it's dropped in there. Yeah, and and the last little bit, we are 2 barns away from spinning the wheel to get ourselves to give away 2 more barns so we can get to our 100 mark. So if you are interested or thinking about getting in there, this is a good time. 2 more barns left to be purchased.
That is the Coop Collective 548 NFT.
Correct. Yep. 2 more shots at that. And obviously we will spin that wheel as soon as that's done. But besides that, yeah, we should probably get out of here.
Okay. Yep. At Pecking Order Racing up in the left-hand corner and Water Racing on the left. We are the Coop Collective, and this has been Cock Talk. I'm never ready for this. Why not? And yeah, that was our show. Bye.
See ya.
All right, get the hell out of here.